This is how I feel. In case you were wondering. We're hitting chapter 18 today. Y'all, the way the internet is going, I might record the rest of this book and then bow out and just be like, I'll just sell books in person at author signings, and that'll be the only way people ever hear about me. And I'm just going to get completely off the internet, and I'll write my newsletters. That'll be it. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's all I do. Because apparently new changes are coming to YouTube. They're going to make it 10 times dumber. And I'm like, what if I just quit? What if I just don't? I'll finish reading because if you're here, you've already listened to me read 17 chapters and you're like, I want to know how this book ends. You could just buy it on Amazon, or Barnes & Noble. I do make a little bit more if you buy it from Amazon though. So anyway, chapter 18, Sunday, December 23rd. Just 23 December 2008. Finally told Grandma and Rochelle about the dreams. They won't stop. At first I thought they were just a side effect of the medication, but I didn't take any last night. I still had the same dreams. Dreams full of water and fear. The all too familiar feeling of freezing flooded over Emma before she could write another word. There was a burning in her lungs. Everything was blue. She was consciously aware of her inability to breathe. She took in her surroundings, concerned that she seemed to be moving in slow motion. Cameron was there, eyes wide in fear. There was a flash of black. Sorry. Emma took a sudden breath. She grimaced and furrowed her eyebrows. Ugh, she grunted. What are you trying to tell me? Emma was awash with cold. The world was green around her. She came out of the brief vision only to feel suddenly warm and plunge into another one. Sunlight blinded her, but the warmth of the sun stimulated her other senses. She smelled salt water. There was a pain in her leg so small she might not have noticed, if not for her desire to return from whence she'd come. Emma shrugged her head. How did wanting to be somewhere else make her legs hurt? Struggling to catch her breath, she tried to call for Rochelle, but it was too late. A chill drowned her senses. Wyatt was on a hospital bed. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered his name, holding his cold hand with her warm ones. Emma's head ached. Her muscles were sore, but there was no time to rest. She was immersed in warmth. People cried. People she recognized but could not name. She hugged them. She was cold again before the vision had fully ended. Sobbing and unable to see a face through her tears, she held a limp body in her arms. Emma's head swam more with each haphazard vision. Breathing heavily, she swallowed. Her eyelids weighed 100 pounds each. Unable to resist any longer, she closed her eyes. Emma breathed slowly and intentionally, concentrating on relaxing. Her muscles were tight and tense. She was still having trouble catching her breath. Rochelle, Emma said, her breathiness turning the name into a whisper. She tried to stand, but collapsed onto her floor. Once more, she felt the sudden shift of temperature, and she was immersed not in a single vision, but a multitude of visions hitting her simultaneously. People were crying. There was mourning. People were crying. They were celebrating. Water washed away the city. The city was intact. People wailed. Parents wailed over limp children. Parents kissed their crying children. The vision ebbed. Somewhere in the back corner of her brain, Emma wondered if these visions were of a terrifying future, or if they were someone's horrifying present. The mass of visions left pressure in her chest, making it hard to breathe. Beads of sweat dripped down her nose as Emma tried to ground herself, staring at the grain of the floor. She tried to focus on each and every color in the wooden floorboard. Her arms shook. She panted, trying to focus, trying to calm her breathing, trying to stay present, but the prickle of a vision swelled over her once more. I can't, she whispered. Later, Emma would reflect on the strangeness of this particular vision. Each vision prior to this one was accompanied by a sudden flash of cold or warmth, depending on the nature of the vision. Yet there was no indication of temperature at the beginning of this one. She felt uneasy. She didn't recognize where she was. Everything was white. She heard the popping and snapping of a fire. Walking towards the sound, she found herself in front of a wood-burning stove. The closer she got to the fire, the colder she became. She felt weaker. She tried to move away from the fire, but she couldn't. Emma's eyes cleared. She was back in her room, collapsed on the floor and staring at her ceiling. Pulling herself back up to the bed, she passed out from sheer exhaustion. Emma? Rochelle peeked inside Emma's room. She saw Emma asleep, journal and covers askew. Rochelle put Emma's journal on the bedside table and tucked Emma in. She took Emma's phone and sent a quick text to Nikki. Hey, Nikki, this is Rochelle. Emma won't make it today. She's exhausted. Rochelle kissed Emma's forehead. It felt warm. Maybe Emma was coming down to something. Rochelle would make soup. Chicken and wild rice was Emma's favorite. December 23rd, 2008. Mom still isn't talking to me. Cam knows something is up, but he's at least smart enough to keep his head down and stay out of the line of fire. Wish I'd thought of that. So throat is sore as ever this morning. Throat is sore as ever this morning, just as Gabby promised. I need to go and make the draught, but I don't have the energy to deal with more mom drama. I guess if I want to be treated like an adult, I ought to act like one. Nikki groaned but stood up. She dug through her bag and found the jar Gabby had given her yesterday. She hadn't wanted to risk Margaret throwing it away. Nikki steeled herself against a possible battle with her mother and went into the kitchen. But, much to Nikki's surprise and immediate relief, Margaret was nowhere to be seen. Cam was, however, sitting on a stool at the island, munching on a piece of toast. Upon seeing Nikki, Cam held up an envelope and said, "This came for you." "Thanks," Nikki said hoarsely. She put her jar on the counter and ripped the envelope open, reading the letter inside. "Dear Nikki, unfortunately, some other business calls me away. You'll resume training with Gabby. It's of the utmost importance you do not speak. Your spell work must be entirely of thought. I understand you find power in words, but the restriction they can put upon your magical abilities is severe. You must be able to understand your magic without words. The usage of words will come later, I promise. I'm not sure when I'll be back, but I'll try to make it soon. Promise me you'll work wordless for right now. Besides, with your throat in its current condition, you're in no position to be speaking very much anyway. Give my love to your brother. Blessed be, Grandma Kate." Nikki shrugged and sighed. "What's it say?" Cam asked. "Grandma will be out of town again," Nikki whispered. "She sends her love." Nikki set the kettle to boil and pulled out a mug. She scooped a spoonful of the amber syrup into the mug. Cam watched for a minute before saying, "Oh, Mom said to tell you she was finishing her Christmas shopping and you should make breakfast. I would like to personally request French toast." Nikki chuckled and nodded. The kettle whistled. She filled her mug halfway with water and stirred until the syrup was fully incorporated. She drank it slowly, thinking about warm, humid air the entire time. She discovered last night if she did both simultaneously, it healed her while also making it easier to swallow the concoction. Nikki cleared her throat as she washed her mug and put it away. "So, French toast," she said to Cam. He widened his eyes. "You sound way better." "Gabby gave me some good tea," Nikki said, gesturing toward the jar. "No tea is that good," Cam said, crossing his arms. "All right, enough's enough. What's been going on?" "What do you mean?" she said, getting the griddle out. "I mean all the freaky stuff. Mom is mad all the time. We have dead Grandma back from the grave, and all of a sudden you have a friend?" Cam said. "I had friends," Nikki said, a bit wounded by the last remark. "Yeah, in Arkansas, not here. Not since we moved. Don't get me wrong," he added. "I like Emma, but she became your best friend overnight. And then you were in the hospital and Mom blames our long-lost Grandma." "She does not blame Grandma," Nikki said. "Does too. I heard her talking to Dad. Mom is super mad. She's mad at you, Dad, and Grandma. I get I'm still a little kid to Mom and Dad, but you've always told me the truth. Like when Mom said Dad's flight was just delayed, but you told me he wasn't coming." Nikki chewed her lip as she piled slices of bread onto a plate. "Get out the eggs and I'll show you, but you have to promise Not to tell Mom I told you. She might send me away or something if she found out you knew because of me. Okay, Cam said slowly. He got the eggs and handed the carton to Nikki. Watch carefully, Nikki said, cracking 5 eggs into a bowl and discarding the shells. Cam glanced at her skeptically. So what? Just watch. Nikki stuck the whisk in the bowl, but did not mix the eggs. She took a step back. Ready? Sure. Nikki closed her eyes and raised her right arm, sticking her hand out as though she meant to shake someone else's. She rotated her wrist so that her hand was palm side down. Using the tips of her fingers as a single unit, Nikki made a stirring motion with them. When Cam gasped, Nikki opened her eyes to see Cam watching the bowl of eggs as the whisk moved unaided through them. Nikki moved her hand faster. The whisk followed the command and began to pisk, pisk in the bowl. Who writes this? How are you doing that? Cam asked, running his hand through the air above the whisk like he was looking for strings. Magic, Nikki said. She put her hand down but continued to think about the whisk, which continued to mix the eggs. I mean for real, Cam said, putting his hands on his hips. Me too. Nikki smiled at him and raised her eyebrows. Dad has magic, and I do too. That's why Mom doesn't like Grandma Kate, because she's Dad's mom, and he got his magic from her. As she finished making French toast, Nikki told Cam all about her 18th birthday. She also explained about Emma and what really happened at the bonfire. So, what can you do with your powers? Cam asked after swallowing a mouthful of French toast. All kinds of stuff, Nikki said, cutting her own piece. I mean, I think I can do all kinds of stuff. I need to get trained by Grandma Kate, which is another reason why Mom doesn't like her. Why? Cam asked. Mom says she wants me to be normal, Nikki said. Yeah, right. You were a weirdo even without your powers, Cam said, grinning. Right? You know how starry-eyed she gets when she starts thinking about me twirling a baton on the dance team, Nikki said, rolling her eyes. She took a bite of her French toast. Or me playing football, Cam said, rolling his eyes too. Nikki grinned. Well, she's still got years to work on you. I think she's starting to see I'm a lost cause at 18. If I tried out for football, I'd end up in a wheelchair playing trombone anyway, Cam shrugged. So, what's it like having powers? What do I call you now? It's weird, and you call me Nikki like you always have, Nikki said, ruffling his hair. More toast? Yes, please. Cam handed her his plate. But are you still human? I don't know why I wouldn't be, Nikki said, furrowing her brow. Well, are you a sorceress or a wizard or... Oh, Nikki said with a laugh. Witch. Wow, Cam said. Will I? They heard the front door unlock. Nikki put her finger to her lips and winked at Cam. He nodded his understanding. Look, Mom, Nikki's making French toast. Do you want some? Cam asked. He hugged Margaret. No, thank you, dear, she said, carrying bags full of what could only be Christmas presents. Margaret walked to her bedroom and closed the door. She isn't handling this well, is she? Cam whispered to Nikki. Nikki just shook her head and put a hot piece of French toast on Cam's plate. Here you go. She handed him the plate. Do you think we'll get 2 Christmases again? Cam asked as he sat back down at the island. Cam's curious nature meant he wanted to ask Nikki more questions about magic, but his sense of survival meant he knew the value of not being overheard by their mother, which was wise. Because Dad isn't here? Nikki asked. She washed the batter bowl, whisk, and spatula. Sans magic. Yeah, Cam said. I would think so. We've had 2 Christmases and 2 birthdays every other time Dad hasn't been here for them, Nikki said. Are you almost done eating? Margaret called from the hallway. I have a few grocery bags in the car I need you to go get. Which you do you think she was talking to? Cam asked before shoving his penultimate bite of French toast into his mouth. Probably you. I don't exist anymore, remember? Nikki flicked her finger, making the dishes soar into the cupboard. But I'll help you anyway. That is the end of chapter 18. I'm going to bed. So, if you want to find out what happens, read what happens next. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It is $15.99 if you have Amazon and Prime. You'll get free shipping. If you don't have Amazon Prime, I have no idea how much shipping is. because I usually try to get free shipping and just order, what is it, $35 worth of stuff now. It used to be $25. Oh, I miss those days. Anyway, I broke my own spine. Sorry, book. Kind of a short chapter. I'll be here next week. Chapter 19. I should say something else about something else. Oh, if you want, sign up for the newsletter. Then you will know all the things. I have some tiny updates. My next author signing is in Layton, Utah. It is November 22nd. I will be at Barnes & Noble in Layton from about noon to 5 is usually how long I do signings for. Book 4, I finished draft 1 of book 4. Like Sunday morning at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm currently reading. Here, I'll even show you when I put it. When I put you. This is how I do this. Okay. Here's book 3. So book 3, as you could see, is much skinnier. Can you see that? Can you tell? I don't know if you could tell. I can feel it in the books. You can see it on the spine better. That's book 1. That's book 3. My goodness gracious. So the editing of book 3 is happening right now. That's on the forefront of my to-do list. Book 2 is already out. That came out this year in May. The goal is I needed to read all of this. That's where I am. I literally just started today. I'd like to get the entire book read by the end of the week, which feels like an impossible task, but we're going to go for it, especially since it's Monday. But get as much of this book read as I can. It's not very long. It's only, 294 pages. Do the math on how much of that I have to read every day. Anyway, I need to get it read, and then I need to edit so I can have the penultimate draft to give my editor November 1st. So I have September and October to edit. And if I read through myself and write things in, then it makes the editing process go so much faster, because I'll read things, and I can't show you an example because I'll give away stuff that happens at the end of book 2. But if I add in, you could see, I add in what it is it needs to change to, then all I have to do is change it to that thing. I don't have to figure it out. I know that there's at least one new scene that I need to write in there. So that'll be an adventure. And then I have my beta reader books back, so I need to go through those also. Anyway, here's some dead air for you. See you next week.